Welcome to the Right Hand Roadmap, the podcast for seconds in command of founder-led companies. I'm your host, Megan Long, owner of Second First. In each episode, we show you the path to success on your journey as the number 2 leader in entrepreneurial companies. I am so excited that you are here. In today's first episode, we're diving into an absolutely iconic Harvard Business Review article titled Second in Command, the Misunderstood Role of the Chief Operating Officer. We'll link it in the show notes for you to either read for the first time or revisit. But in this 2006 article, the authors were studying the CEO-COO partnership and quickly concluded that there was no one singular COO job, which we all know. This is the key sentence for me, though. While other jobs are primarily defined in relation to the work to be done and the structure of the organization, the COO's role is defined in relation to the CEO as an individual. Oh my gosh. Through this revelation that the second in command is such a personally defined position, they were able to dissect the role of COOs and identify 7 types based on their functions and characteristics within an organization. We will go through the 7, and I want you to do 2 things. Number 1, if you are a second in command, so a COO, chief of staff, vice president, director, etc., which of these 7 fit your role? And there can be overlap. You can identify with more than one. And number 2, I am going to give you questions for self-reflection for each of these types to really optimize your role in each of the 7 categories. So for your next clarity break, deep work day, focus time, this is a really good exercise to go through to either journal on or just use as kind of like a, what's your leadership vision? And if you don't have a clarity break, focus time, deep work days, if you don't have those, pause this right now, go to your calendar and schedule that time. Coach Megan is telling you that you need to have that booked on your calendar, because if you do not, then you are just going to get so bogged down in the day-to-day that you're not going to be actually spending time working on the business instead of in the business. Okay, that was my tough love for the day. All right, number 1 of the 7 types is the executor. This role executes the strategy and vision that is set forth by leadership or the CEO. So they're running day-to-day operations. When I was a COO, I had an employee come to my office just to shoot the breeze. And he said, you're always busy, but I have no idea what you do, which is hilarious. But I'm sure you can relate if you are an executor. You're just overall running the business and responsible for daily and quarterly results. This role really allows the CEO to stay above the noise and be forward focused, setting strategy and vision for you to put into operation. So if you identify with the executor, here's your question. How clear are you on what the vision is? And how do you distill it down to the rest of the company? So in other words, how do you align strategy with operations? You would be surprised how often this comes up. So my company, Second First, we do one-on-one coaching for COOs. We have a framework specifically built for seconds in command of founder-led companies. And often it comes up where we ask, are you even clear what your founder's vision is? Do you know what this big picture long-term strategy is that you're supposed to be aligning the company to? And oftentimes they have to go back to their CEO and say, hey, listen, we need to sit down and get really aligned and really clear on what your vision is, so I know what to rally the troops behind. Number 2 is the change agent. So sometimes companies will have very specific strategic initiatives that they bring a COO in to lead the charge. I'll give you a couple of examples. The first, the business is in a nosedive or on the brink of bankruptcy. I'm starting off on a really positive note here, aren't I? But they'll bring in a COO experienced in corporate turnarounds, maybe with a sales or financial background. Another example, a business wants to do something strategically completely new, like maybe launch a franchise model or expand into global markets. Again, they'll bring in a COO experienced in those areas to lead the way. So if you think that you are a change agent in your company, your question is this: what does success look like, and how does your role shift once you achieve it? So clearly you were brought in for a very specific purpose and a very specific initiative. So how do you know that that has actually been accomplished and that box has been checked? And what is your long-term vision for your leadership in that company after that is up and running? Number 3 is the mentor. I feel like I see this most often in tech startups or anything with VC funding, but I'm sure it happens elsewhere as well. When there's a young or inexperienced CEO/founder, they or their board of directors will bring on a more seasoned COO to mentor and build the business alongside of them. That COO usually also brings a very strong professional network to the table. So, your reflection question, if you are a mentor to your CEO, as your founder grows in both maturity and skill set, how does your role change? What is your long and short term leadership vision as the company continues to evolve? Number 4 is the other half. I like to call this the puzzle piece. There are a few facets to the other half, and all require self-awareness and humility of the CEO. The COO is there to fill the gaps, to be strong where the CEO is weak, and to get energy out of the work and accountabilities that the founder does not get any energy out of. The CEO might be a charismatic, loud, fast-moving idea generator, while the COO is calm, grounding, and deliberate in their execution. And this works both ways too, because there are CEOs that are technical experts. They love to be behind the scenes creating the product, and they bring in a COO to be the face of the business and focus more on like sales and PR. It might also be that the founder started a company that they had no previous experience in, so they pull in a second in command with that deep industry experience. So if you are that puzzle piece, if you are someone's other half, here's your reflection question. In order to successfully be someone's other half, they have to be self-aware in what they're missing. How can you drive that discussion in a way that encourages your CEO to bring humility and vulnerability to the conversation? Number 5 is the partner. You literally might be partners in the business, choosing to co-lead as a reflection of that shared equity in the company. At this point, CEO and COO are less of an org chart hierarchy and more about assigning titles in a co-leadership agreement. You may have heard of the term two in a box, referring to two people sharing one seat at the top of an org chart. Well, this Harvard Business Review article specifically references Michael Dell and Kevin Rollins as a CEO-COO pair that truly embodied this in their leadership style. And they went so far as to actually share an office to have like a visual representation of it in the workplace. So if you're a partner to your CEO in your business, your question is, even co-leaders need to have roles defined, and there has to be single ownership of accountabilities. And if you're 50-50, there needs to be a tiebreaker. So have you two clearly defined each role in a way that there's no confusion in your company? And are you comfortable where there is overlap between you two? Number 6 is the heir apparent. This one is pretty self-explanatory. It's the executive identified as next in line for CEO. The COO position is then used as a way to groom or test them for this role, like CEO-elect. Being a second in command is a way to learn every facet of the business. But for this to be successful, there has to be very clear and adhered to expectations, benchmarks, and timelines. If you feel like you are currently being groomed for CEO, or if you know that you're part of that succession plan, here's your question. Statistically, only 17% of companies report backfilling the COO role once promoted from COO to CEO. So knowing this, it brings up a really interesting point to consider. Do you have a second in command or an heir apparent? Because I find this is usually a blind spot in succession planning. Who would take over for you as COO? There's usually not someone that touches every department in a way that you do. So who can you start developing now, or would this have to be an external hire? The final type of COO from this article is number 7, the MVP. Lastly, there are situations where companies play defense with who they promote to COO. These are key employees that the company has deemed too valuable to lose, so they're offered the position as second in command. Occasionally, it is also to retain an executive long enough to determine if they're a possible solution for a CEO succession plan. This is a really interesting and tricky one to me. So if this is you, here's your reflection question. If you found yourself in this situation, what other than money and title made you stay? What was the vision that you believed in enough to stay aboard? Additionally, let's say you were promoted as a key employee. What investments are you committing to make in yourself to prevent Peter Principle? And I think most of us know this term by now, but Peter Principle is the management theory that people rise to a level of incompetence. So basically, you're promoted for being great at one job into another role that you are not good at. So how are you committing to continue development as a leader in the COO role? For example, at Second First, we work with a lot of brand new seconds in command or newly promoted COOs for coaching, and so they feel supported in that transition. As you reflect on these 7 types, consider which archetype resonates with you the most. I think it's important to reiterate that you can embody multiple types depending on the organization and your role. Recognizing your primary traits can help you leverage your strengths and be more effective in your role as a COO. And working through these reflection questions hopefully will bring additional clarity to where you are and where you want to be as a leader. To catch show notes and find links to anything mentioned in this episode, visit secondfirst.com/1, just the number 1. Be sure to subscribe to catch future episodes and leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening on. And remember, you don't have to navigate being a second in command alone when you have the right hand roadmap.